just because you did Mary filing joint this past tax year does not mean you're locked into that status again this year. Hello, and welcome to Financials Podcast, Future Rich. I'm your host, Barbara Ginty, and I'm also a CFP, which is a certified financial planner. And I am here with my guest today, Genevieve. Hi, Genevieve.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a big fan of the show, so really excited to be here.
Oh, I love to hear that. And then for all of our lovely listeners, if you are also a fan of the show, we would super appreciate it if you would share it with a friend and help us grow. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So age, if you're partnered or not, what you do for work, how much you make, all of that jazz.
Sure. So I am 30 years old and I am married. I have been married for the last 2 years and I live in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And I am the director of marketing and communications for a mental health nonprofit organization.
Very nice. And then how much do you make?
I make $112,000 a year.
That's really good for a nonprofit.
Yeah, it is good, especially for this area.
I was going to say, you also live in one of the most expensive areas.
Yes, it's good. It's good for this area for a nonprofit, but I think compared to, like tech companies,
Mm-hmm.
like directors of marketing and communications in the tech sector, it would be a lot higher
if you were in tech.
those. Yeah, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, versus nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about going into tech? Are we going to talk about that?
I am pretty happy in the nonprofit space, actually. Yeah, I'm pretty happy here. This is definitely kind of a level that I've worked to achieve at the director level. So I think I am very interested in like being in this field, and then maybe one day trying to maybe either do like consulting side, or maybe like the foundation side or something. I tried grant writing. It wasn't for me.
Oh.
So
I've heard that my sisters had to do that, and one of my best friends, and they said that's very hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. I was trying that out for like 8 months at a previous job, and it wasn't for me. And so I quickly learned that. And so I'm back doing what I really enjoy doing.
Oh, good. And then what does your husband do?
He is in human resources, and he's also at a nonprofit.
Okay. And then how much does he make?
He makes $67,000 a year.
Okay. Okay. So should we start with expenses? Because I'm like curious what your living costs are in the Bay Area. I heard it was the most San Francisco and Bay Area, I think, are the most expensive in the country right now. Is that true?
It feels like it.
One of it? Yeah.
It feels like it. So we actually we lived in Seattle for 10 years, and then I'm from this area, but he is from the Seattle area. And so then also a high cost of living area, but not quite as high. And so then when we moved back here after getting married, we were living in a much expensive single family home. Mm-hmm. And we were paying about $4,000 a month with utility, with everything included, in. But it just like wasn't, it was like the first place we landed here, and we just kind of quickly realized like we don't need this much space. We thought it would be really nice kind of upgrading from our 1-bedroom apartment that we had in Seattle, but we just really felt that every month with the cost of living. So in March we moved, and so now we are in, again, a much smaller space. I would say it's probably around like 750 square feet.
Okay.
1-bedroom apartment, and our rent has now gone down to $27.45 a month.
Okay, so big difference from where you were before.
Yeah, and that was
but this has no utilities included.
This has all the utilities our landlord pays for except for electricity.
Oh, okay. So most of them.
Yes, and we don't have any pet rent. We have one cat, and we don't have any pet rent here.
Okay.
And then we also there's an on-site washer or dryer, so we don't pay for that either.
Oh, that's really that adds up. I think people don't realize that.
It does add
It's,
up.
yeah.
Yeah. And then you have your
It's,
quarters and yeah.
you have to have the quarters and then the machine, and then you have to go down and do it. And then so sometimes you lean towards like sending it out, which is more expensive, right?
Yes.
Because you're like, I'm out of quarters or I don't have all day to sit here because I haven't done laundry. And then
Yeah,
you send it out. That's really
it's
nice.
true.
Okay, so then you're saving like
So,
1,300, give or take.
yeah, so that would be a savings of 1,300. And so I really it's like it's never a convenient time to move, but
No, never. It's the
never.
worst.
No, it's the worst and it's so expensive even if it's in the
Hmm.
same general area. But I was just like, we need to do this now because we're just going to keep on paying and our rent went up at our old place, and
It
so
went up above 4,000.
no, it went up, and then what led to the 4,000 number.
Got it. Okay.
So
And you guys were like, we cannot, this is not enjoyable. Because at that point, because what is what's your combined monthly income net after?
yeah, so let's see. So combined monthly is 10,000 to 26 a month.
Okay. So then you were spending 40%, which just on rent of your take
Yeah,
home.
yeah, and I think if like if it was a different situation and like if we had kids or something, like it would maybe make more sense of like having a bigger space. But it's
Hmm.
literally just us and our cat, and like it just wasn't really the math wasn't mathing, as they say.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And if you'd rather use the money to go do things or
yeah,
a different goal, right? So it's all about, I think, having intentionality. So if the bigger
mhm.
apartment is what you want because you're hosting people or you have children, that makes sense. But if you're dreading paying it every month, that does not make sense.
Yeah, and we really are trying to prioritize travel right now, but then at the
Hmm.
same time trying to prioritize this is like the main thing. It's just like trying to have fun, but then also trying to save and pay off debt. That's and then finding that balance. And so anyway, so I've been trying really hard to put what we are saving on rent into an emergency fund savings. So
Okay, amazing. And I asked what your combined monthly net income is, which is 10,000. And how are you doing your bills? I guess I went off a little tangent. Does it just combined?
yeah, it's combined. I think we worked it out that I am paying I put in slightly more because
Okay,
I make
you make
more.
more. Yep.
Yeah. And so every month I'll just put in like a big portion, like I'll just like put in the same big portion of money into like our joint account, and then
Hmm.
that goes to that's like rent, food, just like our cat expenses, transportation, like we have Simply Safe, we have our phone plan, internet, like all of that, like
Okay,
streaming. So I just put it in like the same big um,
account.
account, yeah, in the joint account, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have coming in gross combined just over 10,000, then rent's 2745, and then what are some of your expenses?
Yeah, so okay, so I guess I've been doing $500 a paycheck to emergency fund.
Great.
Yeah, so I've been doing that, so $1,000 a month, and then yeah, the 10,226 is net. That's net.
Yeah, that correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
After taxes, and you have a lot of we have a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
state of
Yeah.
California, the taxes, and then are you both contributing to your work plans, your respective retirement plans?
Yeah. So my husband doesn't. Unfortunately, he does not have. He has a plan, but they will the work his work will only do like 500 a year.
Okay, to match it.
They just like put that in as like
Oh,
I think, and then he does like a small amount, maybe like 5% every month. So the amount that I said of his is after that. It's after that.
yep, perfect.
Okay.
That's great. So
Yeah.
they're putting in 500 for him, and he's putting in 5%.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then for yourself.
And then for me, I get a 4% match,
Oh, great.
and I so I tried out this thing, and this is honestly just because I'm indecisive, but I'm doing 3% before tax and 4% Roth.
Perfect. I have no issue with that. The only thing I would say is you are in a high tax environment with your married filing joint income because you have city tax as well,
Yeah.
right? So you're
Yes.
paying three taxes. So you're paying federal, state, which state of California is pretty high, if
Yes.
I
It is.
remember. Okay, it is
Yes.
high. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you would qualify as high income earners with your married filing joint income. You have good
Hmm.
income. And then you have city tax, right? And then plus you have
Yeah.
your payroll taxes, right? You have your Social Security and Medicare. So you're
Yes.
losing quite a bit. So the question really comes down to, and it's sometimes hard to know, but are you better off deferring the taxation now because you might be in a lower bracket later and you want to pay your taxes later at a lower amount? So that question comes, do you think you will always live in California?
Mm.
And if your family is there, then you might say, yeah, my parents are here. I'm probably not going to leave California. So, because really the Roth gets the reputation of being better. The Roth is just different. I don't necessarily think it's better or worse. I think it depends on your tax situation, what is in your best interest, right? And so
Yeah.
for everyone's individual tax situation is different, and everyone's situation in the future will probably also be different. And so some people know, like, I probably won't be earning at this level, right? So maybe in retirement, we're not bringing home your gross 170, 180. So
Hmm.
maybe we'd be better off doing pre-tax now because we could potentially pay less later because maybe our income in the future in retirement is 125, right? So we have a tax savings there. The other way to think about this, and it's all the hard part about the decision is we don't know the future variables, right? So
Yeah.
we're like,
Yeah.
we're just guessing, right? And some people have a strong opinion about what will happen in the future or what their plan is. So then it makes it easier for them today. But the other portion of it is, do you think or do you plan on continuing to earn more? In which case, then this might be your better tax bracket. That's the other thing to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, and I know. And I think people do really kind of seem to put the Roths plan on a pedestal.
Yes,
Um,
that's a great way to describe it. They put the Roth on
yeah.
the pedestal. The Roth is always up there winning. And it's like, why is the Roth always winning? It just
Always.
depends on always winning. Everyone's always like, oh, I just listened to a podcast and the woman, another financial podcast this morning,
Hmm.
and the woman was making between five or 600,000 a year. And then her husband, yeah. And they're like, oh, we're going to do Roth. Like, and I was like, I actually don't believe you're eligible at all for Roth with your income. But the Roth gets that reputation of like, if you're going to do anything, you're going to do the Roth. And
Yeah.
remember, it's all about taxes. So if you're paying a lot of taxes now and you're saving that tax money today, right? And then you're going to pay it later, more is in theory going into that account, right? Because you're having the tax savings and when you grow. And so it should net out to be similar if you get the taxes approximately right. I will say that if you're indecisive, for people who are indecisive, I always just say just split it because you never know. Now you don't know and you don't have to make a choice. And then that way in the future, you're going to have a little bit of both. And then you can decide at that time what is in your best interest. Or you can combine the distributions and say, if let's say for the next 30 years until you're 60, you split it,
Yeah.
then you're going to have like half in Roth, half in not. And then maybe when you take your distributions, you take half from the IRA and half from the Roth, you know? So
Yeah.
it's not a bad idea to split it. And as you get further in your career, you can, this is the thing I also tell people, you're not locked into that selection.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
This
It's a
is,
good
this could
reminder.
be, yeah, this could be this year's decision is I'm not sure. We're going to do half and half, basic approximately.
Approximately. Yeah.
You will end up more with the pre-tax because the pre-tax, your match is usually pre-tax because the companies get a benefit. So it's 7%
Yeah.
pre-tax total and then 4% Roth, but you're not locked in. And so you can always switch this.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. That's a good reminder because I think it's easy to get into the mindset of like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of time, but that's not
No,
the
people
case.
get like really worried about the selection. I'm like, well, just do it for this year then. And then next year say, you know, we have more expenses coming up, so I'm going to switch to pre-tax for this year because this is your expensive year or whatever have you. Or yeah, you can always switch it.
Yeah. That's a good reminder. Yeah. And I think I hadn't always seen that option. Like in some previous like workplace plans, I hadn't always seen it. So I just thought, oh, I didn't know I could. I didn't know I could split it. So I just kind of wanted. Maybe I just
Yeah.
overlooked it before, but I just thought, okay, I'm gonna try and do it.
No, that's possible. Depending on who you work for, they might not have a Roth feature. It's more common these days. You're seeing it more often that it's standard,
Uh huh.
but it's not to say that you don't. I mean, sometimes you hear people work for companies who have no plan at all, or a
Right.
small business, right? And so, like, we don't have a Roth option for our small business. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think that if you don't know, splitting it is a great way to
Okay.
to do it. And then just always remember if you change jobs or every year, I would just reevaluate and say, does this still make sense for what we've had planned for this coming year?
Okay. Yeah. And I think that that's the other good reminder is like is I think when we think about retirement plans, it's always like future us. And
Hmm.
so but then I think we think it's good to remember that like well we are this is us present in the present moment, and so we can decide to do this like pre-tax, we can decide to choose things that make it easier for us now
Yep.
given our current situation now that can still benefit us in the future. So
Right. And remember, I think the key is having, and this is why the whole reason we do the podcast is having the education around the various vehicles and their features, right? So the pro con for Roth, the pro con for the traditional, and then saying like this year, we're really going to focus on traveling or we want to pay off debt. And so we're going to do the pre-tax to get the most bang for our buck, to stretch our
mhm.
dollars the furthest. And we know that once we get that done, then we're going to go back to the Roth. Or you could
Mhm.
say at a certain point in our career, we're really just going to focus on the Roth and bite the bullet. Or we're going to retire and we want to convert traditional to Roth because we've also saved non retirement money. So I think the key is understanding all the vehicles that you have available to you
Yeah.
and then knowing that you don't have to pick one vehicle and stick with it for 30 years.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
play with the vehicles and see how they fit and what's going on in your life. And you can always change direction. I think the key is just understanding that we have pre tax, we have Roth, and then we have non retirement monies, right? So that those are your three main money types, and just understanding that we have those three. And then how do they play into today, your current self? And then as long as you know what they are, you can always switch your direction down the road or
Yeah.
plan for them later in your career.
Yeah. And kind of just pull those levers as
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
years go on. Yeah.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
a lot of times. You're not locked into any. You're not locked into it.
Yeah.
But
That's good to know. I feel like I'm still behind. I feel like I'm behind in retirement. So I don't know. It's good to know that I'm 30. It's like, I'm still
we've, yeah, we have time.
yeah.
Okay. So you're both contributing to work. Your husband's doing 5% with a $500 match, and you're doing 7% with a 4% match, split between the pre-tax and the Roth.
Mhm.
And so when we were talking about the net, the 10,000 is after your retirement and then health insurance. Are you carrying the health insurance?
We both have our own separate health
Oh, okay.
insurance plans. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we have rent at 27.45. And then what are your 1,000 a month for you is going into the emergency fund?
Yeah, that's going into the emergency fund, and then so then my husband has about 37,000 in student loans,
Okay.
and so then he has that monthly payment, um,
Yep.
and that works out to be about I think like $468 a month,
Okay.
which is pretty brutal. At least it feels
Yeah.
like it. So basically, what that has ended up being is that because he earns less, if that's like all of his extra
Disposable. Yeah.
disposable income just goes to his student loan every other month, and then he does have like every other month where he has that amount back, like it's because it's every 2 weeks,
Okay.
so he does have an extra like 468, I guess, every like once a month, but then once a month he pays that for his student loans. Does that make sense?
So he's paying the student loan once a month.
Yeah.
So but he has to pay it every month. So is it like he pays with one pay period because he gets paid twice a month?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so he's recovering from that because he pays it in the beginning of the month, right? The first with the
Yeah.
first paycheck. And then
Mhm.
he's recovering because that's just all of his income. So by the next paycheck, he's caught up a little.
Yeah, so he pays 468 a month, And so, like the first pay period, that's gone. The second
Yep.
pay period, he
He
has,
doesn't have it. He has an extra
yeah,
468 a month.
yeah,
Okay, so it's really his in a month, but the way they're hitting, it feels like he doesn't because he doesn't have 468 till the second half of the month.
yeah, yeah. And so we've just been using that amount that he has for like any, I guess, like getting caught up on credit cards or
Okay.
just like incidentals, like just kind of,
They come up. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
And with his student loan, do you know? So he's not on an income-based repayment because because otherwise you would be doing married filing separate because it would be
yeah.
based on his income, which is kind of a brutal tax bracket.
Yeah, and I think that we didn't really do our due diligence because everyone was like, "You're married now, so just
File together.
file together." And so we didn't really think about how that would impact the student loans as much.
So did his payment go up then?
Yes, it did go up.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so two things there. One, just because you married, once again, just kind of like the same conversation with the Roth and the pre-tax. Just because you did marry filing joint this past tax year does not mean you're locked into that status again this year.
yeah.
So you could look at doing married filing separate, but let's just see where we are. And then that way they would use his income for his payment. But my question is, do you know how much longer he has?
So
Do you know what the
he,
payment plan is? The payment plans with student loans are always sometimes confusing because I feel like with a mortgage, you're like, you know exactly what day you're done. You're like, I'm done with the
yeah.
mortgage on this day. And on student loans, people are like, I don't know. I've been paying for 10 years. I have no idea when this thing is going to end.
So yeah, and I know that he's still one thing I really want him to do is to get the public service
I
student
was
loan
so, okay,
service.
so he would qualify for that.
He would qualify, and I even think that he could qualify retroactively because I know that he's been in the nonprofit sector for like 5 years now.
Okay.
But he hasn't been making payments all 5 years because they were paused.
I
Um,
think the paused years counts. Don't quote me on that, but I do think the paused years count.
yeah, I feel like I heard that it might. So anyway, so it's about 37,000. It's all federal,
So it would all
and
qualify.
yeah, so I think it would all qualify. And so anyway, he's like looking for new jobs right now, but and so I'm like, okay, well, one of the considerations should be to stay within a sector where you can still
I
qualify.
agree.
But yeah.
So I'm just looking at the tax brackets, and I am not a tax professional, but it looks like you by yourself would end up probably in the same bracket if you did married filing joint. Give or
Okay.
take, where's my standard deduction? Yeah, it looks like you would be in the same tax bracket, but your husband by himself would be, and this is where I would speak with an accountant. It looks like your husband, he would also be right now. This is where I would ask an accountant. He would right now he would be a smidge over and also be in the same bracket as you filing together, but I believe they would reduce what he contributes to work off of that number for his
Okay.
federal. Rough math, it looks like he'd have to put like 5,000, which is a lot, 500 a month into his work plan to lower his taxable bracket. And then he would save like 10% federally if he lowered his bracket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and then if his student loan payment gets lower because it's based on like his income versus joint income,
Yeah.
he would be able to do that. And so then he would have a tax savings, have a lower student loan payment, and then be putting more away. It would make the dollars go a little farther.
Yeah.
So I think some homework for you guys would be to investigate that with an accountant because I'm just looking at rough numbers. But
Sure.
I think that if he could increase his work contribution to lower his tax, he would save around 10% federally, which would be a pretty big savings, give or
Yeah.
take. And then it should lower his student loan payment by doing married filing separate. So it would be based
Okay.
only on his income. So if that could lower that payment and he's on that, he has only 5 years left, it would allow him to save more, have a lower student loan payment, and then in 5 more years, stay in this industry, get that solved, right? It would be done.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will definitely look into that further. I think anything related to like taxes, it like makes my head spin because I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, I just we owed about $1,000 last year, and we were just like, we were certain that we were going to get a refund. I don't know why we were certain. We didn't have anything to base that off of. We were just hoping. But I know that it's not necessarily good to get a refund. But we were just
But
hoping.
yeah, you don't want to owe either, because it
Yeah.
like if you're budgeting. So currently, based on his income and the 5%, he's saving $3,350. I think he needs to be closer, as I said, to 5,000 into his retirement. So I would just book an appointment with an accountant and say, let's look through where we know where our income's going to be this year. We want to know if we do married filing separate and he increases his work retirement contribution from 3,350 up to 5,000 and we do married filing separate. And I would try and come up with an estimate where you think the student loan number will be, but I would think it would go down from 468 because it would be based just on his income and not your joint income. So 67,000 is a lot different than 180 gross, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he should get a few $100s knocked off. And even if he should save a little bit monthly, but and still allow him to have a higher savings rate. And so then he'll pay less in tax. You'll pay the same. Like your taxes, just nothing changes for you.
That'll be the same. Okay.
Yeah, you should be about the same. And I would just have the accountant run the numbers and see. I think this will be in your best interest for two reasons. One, it'll give him a lower number and allow him to save more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Okay.
shouldn't be getting hit with owing taxes either. So it should be like a more
Yeah.
even budget.
Yeah. That's like I just heard this expression, feed two birds with one scone.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too. I was like, that's less violent.
Plus, like killing them, yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone likes a scone, right? So I
Right.
would look at that because I think him saving another 1,600 a year will really add up. And then if he could also, cut down, it might be a wash, but then if you don't owe money, then you saved $1,000, right? Because it's like no one wants
Yeah.
a bill for $1,000, right? That's nice to not have that happen.
Yeah.
So
Especially unpredictable. It was an unexpected one.
yeah, and
So
I think sometimes with accountants, you need to be proactive. You need to go and say, okay, if we do the increased contribution for his work retirement and we do married filing separate, run
yeah.
the tax return and see what that looks like. Because we're going to be able to lower, because even if the only thing, if you have no savings, doesn't matter, you would be paying the same amount for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
give or take. But if it lowers his student loan payment, allows him to save more, like to me, that's a win. If he's
It seems
saving
like
another
it.
1,600, yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just that's not going. You're not seeing that anywhere, and then
Yeah.
instead 1,600 improves your net worth. But the accountant is probably not doing all of this maneuvering, right? They're like,
Right.
thank you for your 1099s. Here's what you owe.
Yeah. Yeah. Not doing all the kind of mental
Like, okay, he's
gymnastics.
eligible. Yeah, he's eligible for the public loan student forgiveness. So he should be on an income-based repayment plan. So if we could if that could get lowered significantly, and in theory, let's just say he's doing another 200 a month into the work retirement, but that gets down to 168, then he's saving $100 a month and adding another 1,600 a
Mm-hmm.
year into retirement. That's significant,
Yeah.
right? The savings there are like 2,800.
Yeah. That does become
Worth
significant.
it's worth the time, yeah, to
Yeah.
sit down and math this out.
Yeah. Especially because the student loans aren't going. I mean, they're not. They could go away if with PS
It
all,
could, yeah,
but not anytime
but
soon.
maybe not. And like if they get wiped out in year two, might as well save some money on those payments in the interim.
Right. And maybe like try to have that go to the emergency fund or something.
Yeah, anywhere else, really.
Yeah, anywhere else. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
anywhere
Yeah.
other than the loans. So
Yeah.
I think it's worth. I think so twofold. Talk to the accountant about married filing separate
Okay.
on the premise of it's better for his student loan payment, but then to keep his tax bracket in the lower 12%, find out how much he needs to put in the work retirement. I think it needs to be around 5,000 total, which would be about 1,700 more a year, 1,600 more a year, give or take.
Okay.
Do all pre-tax. You want to stretch those dollars the most in his situation,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Because we want a dollar for dollar reduction off his taxable income to lower his bracket. And then figure out make sure he goes back and gets the qualification for the last 5 years that he's eligible. And then with the married filing separate, he should have a much lower income-based repayment for that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit of of married filing jointly, like in
There
our.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, more for you.
Okay. Okay.
He would have gotten a tax refund probably.
He would have. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm the one,
It-
I'm causing
yeah,
us. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
As the breadwinner, so like I got married last year. My husband makes a lot
Congratulations.
less. Thank you. Makes a lot
Yeah.
less than me. And so when we did married filing joint federally. We did married filing separate state. So you can do all sorts
Oh,
of, I know.
I didn't even know
Yep,
you could
all
do
sorts.
that.
You can, because we did not have the same residence statewide. So I did state in New York. You did state in Utah. But yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do. But you have to. The thing with the accountant is if you give them your documents in February, the year has already happened. So them telling you in February, like, oh, you should have contributed more. It's too late.
Yeah,
It didn't happen.
it's
And at
already.
that point, it doesn't really matter because he would have been in the 22% bracket and you would have been. So there was no savings. But if he opts his work retirement, he could potentially be in the 12% bracket with married filing separate. You're just always in 22.
Okay.
You're just there. So, but like you see, like so with the account, it's something you have to do now in advance of next year because you'd have to
Hmm.
change your numbers, and so you have about 6 months left in a year. So he'd have to aggressively save more now to get to hit that number. So you'd have to get the
Okay.
student loans. So it's going to be some gymnastics, which is why the accountant's not going to, I don't know who's doing it, but they file it and then
Yeah.
there's not like a counseling meeting that comes with it to say, hey,
Yeah.
maybe we could do better next year. Sometimes
Yeah.
but they're so busy during tax season. So they're normally just doing the returns and here you go. So
Yeah.
that's
They're
why you
not.
want to meet with the accountant now and figure it out. And I think it's worth the money to pay someone to like do the right math. And then this is your strategy for like the next 5 years.
Okay. That's
But
super
anyway,
helpful.
yeah. So my husband, when we got married, was like, does this mean I never get a tax refund again? And I was like, yes, it does. That means it's never getting one.
Just be prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, just so you know. He's like, so like, are you going to give it to me? And I was like, no, you're just not going to get one. I was
Yeah.
like, we can discuss it. He's like, I've always gotten a refund. And I was like, I've never gotten a refund. So,
I know, and I've like some years I have, and some years I've owed, and it's always been like the extremes. So I don't, and I living in Washington State before, there's no income tax.
right. Yeah. Now you're paying, not only did you have not income tax, you have two taxes now. You have state and local, which you didn't have state or local. So you got two more.
I know, and I didn't realize how good we had it there. So, yeah,
Yeah. So like maybe you retire back to Washington and then
yeah,
but I do think it's 100% worth an appointment and sit down. And I think the one thing the accountant is going to want to know, because they probably won't know this off their head, but what would the student loan payment be based just on his income? And you could
mm,
probably, like as an income base, like if he gets into because you have to be in the income base, well, they put you in the income based repayment program with the
yeah,
forgiveness. So
yes,
like, what would that number be?
okay, yeah. I'm sure we could figure that out
Yeah,
pretty
this is going to
easily.
take. Okay, good. I was like, anytime I call the student loan places, I feel like it's like death by paper cut. You're always just like, how are you making this information so difficult to obtain?
Yeah,
But
maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe it won't be easy. I was like, oh, that should be fine. But I guess I'm not the one on the phone with them. He is. So,
yeah, so I think it's going to be worth how much, even if this takes a few hours to figure out and cost a bit of money to meet with the accountant, I think this is well worth square rooting because
mhm.
I think that you can save a lot more in retirement and have a lower student loan payment and then get it forgiven. And so then that way you're not as worried about that balance because we just know it goes away after 5 years.
Yeah,
I do think that unless he's going to get a job where he's making significantly more money, where he could just pay it off himself, I think it's worth staying in a job that qualifies.
yes, yes. I think obviously, like, I think both would be great if he could get into a job that pays more and if he could qualify.
Yes, and still qualify. That would be the unicorn.
That would be the unicorn, exactly. So, yeah, so it's hard. I mean, it's very, those jobs are so competitive. But that would be a great outcome if he could. So, but we'll
Yeah,
definitely make an appointment with an accountant before in the next 6 months.
yeah, before I would do it ASAP because
Okay.
if the accountant says, yes, he should be doing 5,000 and then he'll save 10% federally, you need to start. We'll see if you can figure out how to nail it for this year,
For
right?
this
How do
year.
we get
Yeah.
more money in for this year? not, so you want to do the accounting. Yeah. So like after we get off, like I would say today's homework is like find an accountant, even if you
Right
just pay
away.
for an hourly rate. Yeah. And say like, we need to go over investigating married filing separate, mainly because of the student loan forgiveness. And also like, how do we save some tax money on that for my husband?
Okay, we'll do it. Yeah, I really like having
Okay.
homework, so thank you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yes, I do well with homework, so that's
Okay.
great.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll do a little homework. Okay, so we got the rent. I don't think I got any of your other expenses. So I know that you have
Yeah.
468 for the student loans, you 1,000 for the emergency fund. What are your, if you want to even just sum it up for me, like what are your fixed costs monthly? So with the
Hmm.
rent, what do
Yeah.
you, how much do we have?
So for groceries, we've just kind of been increasing it because of it. Things are expensive, but at this point now
Yes.
it's like 800 a month.
Okay.
And then we have now been budgeting for like going out. It's like restaurant slash like alcohol, I guess,
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
is also 800. We have like just like a, I don't know, like personal, like medical, like copays,
Mm-hmm.
appointments, all that, and that's at around
225.
225. Thank you. We have our phone plan is 120 a month for
Okay.
both of us. Entertainment, we just budget $50 a month. That was kind of left over from COVID, from like just literally just watching movies and renting movies. That's not the case anymore, so we need to we probably should change that. Internet is about $66. We have all of our the stuff for our cat, which is about $40, and then I have a life insurance. I have ladder like
Okay.
life insurance, and I pay $66 a month for that.
And what kind of life insurance is that?
It is term, not
Oh, good. I was
yeah.
holding my breath here.
Yeah, yes, it's not whole.
Okay.
it's term. Yeah.
And how long do you have it for?
But I think I had it. I think it's for 500,000
Okay.
for. I think this one was for 30 years.
Okay, good. I was really nervous you were going to tell me it was permanent. I was
No,
like, oh.
no,
I mean,
no.
66 is low for 500, so it should be term given what you're paying. So that's
Yes,
good leverage.
yeah, yeah. So that's mine, and then my husband doesn't have. He has like a workplace life
Hmm.
insurance plan, but nothing separate. So I'm just confirming that, but then other expenses are we have renters insurance slash pet insurance.
Yep.
That's
Good.
72 a month.
Okay.
We have Simply Safe for $28 a month,
Okay.
and then we have car insurance for $80 a month, and then we also budget $150 for gas because
Yep.
my husband has a big commute.
Okay.
And then we also budget like $80 just for Ubers slash parking slash
Got it.
like a train, all that.
Hmm.
And then we have a car payment.
I was going to ask if you
We
had a car payment.
Yeah, so it's actually a car payment to family
Oh, okay.
because last year we bought a car from my family member, and that is $306 a month.
Okay.
And we have only about $1,200, 12
Oh,
6 12 16 left. Yeah,
okay. So you have like 4 months left on that.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
so that will be a nice move back in your budget, 300 a month.
yeah, I'm really excited for that because obviously it's been interest free, which has been really nice, but it's
Yeah, that's
still
amazing.
yeah, and it was great. It's great. I mean, so I think we paid like 6,500 for the car, and it's just like it's been over the course of like 18 months, I think, and so that's been really helpful. But it will still be nice to have that back. Yeah,
Yes. Oh, definitely.
yeah. So then I have a therapy which I do every 2 weeks, and so that's 165.
Okay.
Because I pay out of pocket for that, unfortunately.
Okay.
And then let's see, we also have utilities, which we're still kind of trying to figure out because here that we moved in about 4 months ago, and so we haven't like gotten the main
Hmm.
like kind of the idea of how much it will be, but I think that's about 80. since it's just
Okay.
electricity. And then I did confirm that for life insurance, it is 500K for 20 years, not
20
30.
years. Okay.
Okay, we have subscriptions and I have them all listed, but like, what's the total? It's probably about $130 a month for
Okay.
like subscription.
Subscriptions. Okay.
And then we have donations just right now. I wanted to be doing more, but right now it's just at $15 a month.
Okay.
And then for gifts, we have that at $100 a month budgeted. We have a gym membership that is 138 for, and that covers both of us.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's at the Y. Actually, yeah. So we just actually got this other. My husband got this other subscription, so it's actually closer to 170 for
Okay.
monthly subscriptions.
Okay.
And then I do have we do have a kind of an interesting situation where when we moved, we had accumulated a lot of debt just from over the years, and so we
Hmm.
actually worked with a loan. It's basically like a company that does interest free lending.
Okay.
And this is like kind of an interesting loan because it's specifically for, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. So I have worked at like faith based organizations in
Okay.
the past. I don't right now, but so basically, if you're the way that this particular place works is if you're if you work for this faith based organization, or if you are a member of this faith based community, you
Yep.
qualify for this interest free lending.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
I have
so
never heard of this.
yeah, I can just tell you what it's. I mean, you can edit it out if you want, but
Yeah.
it's called Hebrew Free Loan.
Oh, wow.
This model has been around since like the late 1800s, and it's in pretty much every major city in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's an amazing organization. But so
Yeah.
we, at the time, I was working for a Jewish organization, and then so I qualified by being an employee, but then I also qualified just by being Jewish.
Jewish. Right.
Yeah, and so so anyway, we had the number is $16,445 of credit card debt,
Okay.
and we worked with them. We applied and we worked with them to transfer that over to them.
Okay.
And so now we're paying them instead of the
Credit cards.
credit cards.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's
I can't
amazing.
believe I've never heard about this.
Yeah, and I don't know if the same exists for like other communities, like if it exists for other religious communities.
Religion? Yeah. Can we
But
leave it in? Because I think it's important for people to know this exists.
yeah, I'd love to leave it in. I wasn't. I mean, again,
Okay.
like I wasn't sure if it was too specific, but I mean, they're in every major city, like
City. Yeah.
different models. Like it's the same kind of format, but like a different one for like I don't know San Diego, or I'm
Right.
sure New York has one, or different areas. So
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic. So, like, if you've gotten in over your head, you can go to your community if you're part of this community, whether an employee or just a member, and then
yes,
they can counsel you and work with you to help you get ahead.
yeah, exactly. So they really
Yeah.
do. It's super personalized, and they basically when you're paying your loan, that goes into their it's like a whole cycle. So then when you pay off your loan, you are invited to kind of participate in donating or kind of helping with
Somebody else.
someone else.
Yeah, giving someone else a helping hand because you got a helping hand.
Exactly. And it's this way of, and I think especially as obviously now things are very different than the 1800s, late 1800s, but it
Yeah,
still
very
remains,
different.
yeah, it still remains that interest can be like crippling. And
Yes,
so anyway, it's just an amazing model. And so I recommend that whoever is
it's listening.
interested
Yeah.
and can qualify, yeah, it's worth looking into. And so because of them, we've been able to we pay 435 to them each month, and we have about 13,400 left to pay.
Perfect.
And yeah, they're great. I could just go on about them all day long, but they do like
Yeah, I
business
think that's
loans. They do,
fantastic. Absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
Because sometimes I just got interviewed yesterday. I think the hard part about credit card is it can sneak up on you, and
yeah,
oftentimes it's not for very frivolous things. It's like you moved, or there was a house, like you own a house, and as we talk about on the show a lot, like it's never never $100. It's always 1,000 or 2,000, and so it can really snowball, and it can be very difficult when you're in the credit card hole to get yourself out. And so the fact
yeah,
that sometimes you just need a hand, you just need the interest to pause
yeah,
and so that you can get on top of it. And so I think this is fantastic. I'm like a little shocked I've never heard about it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's pretty. I think it's pretty like within kind of the community.
the community
Yeah, it's very much like mutual, almost like mutual aid or community care
aid,
before
yeah,
that was a as much of like a buzzword, but it's very cool, and it really was like we were just so relieved when they helped us, because it was just like there was no judgment, and it was like like you just were saying, it can sneak up on you,
yeah, it
and
can.
it just was like, yeah, I mean, it was kind of just, it was the move, and it was just like a number of other smaller things, but it just kind of
And then
grew.
the interest, right? So then it's just growing is the
Right,
problem.
right,
It starts small and then all of a sudden it becomes this monster that just keeps accumulating.
right, exactly. And so I would much rather give our payments to them and then, be helping them in the future
Hmm.
than our credit card companies.
Right, because
So
it's just like you're treading water if not drowning in it. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so now you're moving forward. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and
So
that's
yeah.
your only credit card debt. So you went through this program, you're paying them.
Yeah, I have about 900 on a credit card right now that I plan to pay off
Okay.
within like the next month and a half.
Okay.
And so, and that was, we have a trip coming up in the fall. So I
Okay.
just put that on there, but I
On
plan to,
there, and then you're planning to pay it off.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And so
So,
what do your
mhm.
total expenses come to? It sounded like you had a spreadsheet there. Do you have a total or do you want me to add this up?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. And I didn't send this, I just didn't know if it's in a Google Doc. I don't know if I didn't just know if I
That's okay.
sent it
If
to
you
you.
just want to tell me
Hmm.
what what it comes to, I think we can work with that.
Yeah, so, but yeah, so it comes to about $7,518.
700 and say that again.
7,518.
Oh, 18. Okay. And then and that is including your 1,000 for the emergency fund and the credit card or the repayment and student loans, or is that just the other expenses, the restaurant, alcohol, car insurance, Simply Safe? Blah.
So that this is supposed to include everything, like our loan payment and the
Yep.
student
Okay.
loan, but not, it
Got it.
doesn't include,
Not the emergency fund.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then with the 1,000 for the emergency fund, then you're really at 8,500.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So then in theory, you have 1,500 left over a month. Do you feel like you have 1,500 left over a month between the two of you?
I don't feel like I do. I guess the other reason why is because I'm on a payment plan for medical
Okay.
expenses. So I guess I should have mentioned that. I don't know how to categorize it because it's not really debt, but it's also,
But
uh,
you're paying for it.
yeah, yeah. So I just started this payment plan. And so this is $200 a month.
Okay.
And I just finished paying off another medical debt
Okay.
plan that was like, in total it was like 2,500, and I just finished paying that off.
That off. Okay.
So
So in theory, you have 1,300, but as you know, 1,300 over the course of the month is just a couple $100 a month or a week.
yeah, yeah,
So it would, so it could be like pretty easily spent without you really feeling it. Because, it's 1,200 over the month is 300 a week, which if you go out to
yeah,
dinner, right, there goes once a week, there can go a big portion of that. And if anything
exactly.
else goes over or vacation, right? So that can
Yeah,
get absorbed pretty quickly. So I
yeah,
think what will feel better is in 4 months. So I think a couple things. I really do think this idea of sitting down with an accountant and figuring out like, can we save some money? Because like also if your leftover is 1,200 a month and you get a hit with a tax bill for 1,000, like there's nothing,
right. That's kind of what happened.
yeah,
It felt kind of brutal. Yeah,
yeah, that's exactly how it would feel. Because even if you say like we went over all these numbers, but like if gas is higher, 1 month, right? There's a lot of like 200 over the course of a month between two people. I could see very easily getting spent somewhere on something
Right.
with, the grocery bill was a bit higher than expected, or we went out to dinner, right? Like some things in your budget could be higher. You could have a month where everything is higher versus saving on something. So
Yeah.
I think with the car payment going away, I think that will help a lot. I also think figuring out if this married filing separate might reduce the student loan payment and allow, without much difference to the budget, your husband to save more for
Yeah.
retirement. So then at
Yeah.
least if everything still feels tight, he's saving significantly more in retirement.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like it just seems like a win in
Yeah, a
any way
win.
you look at it.
And then, so how are we doing with the emergency fund and the savings?
Yeah, and I totally think you're right about just that it things can sneak up. Like for example, like none of this here accounts for any kind of like trips or anything. So
Right.
like
There's no vacation, I've noticed. Yeah.
right, so like that's what like this weekend we're going out of town, and it's just amazing. We're
Hmm.
going like under an hour away, and it
Okay.
ends up being like we paid like $500 for Airbnb. We have to pay for someone to watch our cat. Like it just gets, and those are all things
That's your 1,200 right there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the leftover
Yeah,
right there.
yeah,
So it goes
exactly.
quick.
It does go quick. And I'm just super, I've gotten a bit obsessive about trying to save enough and I have this goal of wanting to save $12,000 by the end of this year.
Okay.
So anyway, our emergency fund is in a high yield savings account.
Great.
And currently, pulling it up, it is at, so my goal is to have 3 months by the end of the year. And I
Hmm.
calculated that I think just our basic expenses would probably be about 4,000 a month
Hmm.
if we
How
stripped
to cut
away
back everything. Yeah.
yeah, everything. So right now we have $5,665 in our emergency fund.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So you're
Yeah.
moving along. The 1,000 a month makes a big difference.
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that I want to just keep on putting that in there
Hmm.
every month so that by the end of the year we'll have just about 12,000.
1,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of this will start to get easier as you start to hit these goals. I just want to bring that up. So like you're kind of in the thick of it at the moment. You have a medical bill, you're paying off the car, you're paying off you know, the community lending. And so it will all, as this starts to sunset, and also with your student loan, your husband's student loans, I think that will be a wash or maybe save you $100. $100 is great, but it's not, I don't think it's going to be dramatic, but I think your net worth will change dramatically if he's
Yeah.
increasing that retirement. So view it that way. Your net worth will still be going up significantly more, even if it's not in your day-to-day budget.
Yeah.
Um, so once the car is done in 4 months, what I would encourage you to do is, even if you give yourself back a little bit of that, I would take that car payment, and that I would say for, I know you talked about wanting to travel more, like that's 250 or 300 a month that then goes into another lined item high yield savings account, and that's vacation. So
Hmm.
then when a trip comes up, instead of having 900 on the credit card, you use that money that's outside of but you've like started to, you're going to take vacation. So you start saving that money monthly
Yes. Yeah. In like a specific bucket or whatever.
in a bucket. Yeah, I would put
Yeah.
it in a bucket. Like this is 250 or 300 a month going into the bucket. That will be a good amount annually. It's 3,600 annually. And then if you go a little over, you still technically have a buffer in your budget. We're just not seeing it because of things
Yeah.
that are coming up. But
Yeah. Right. And
that's, that's life. But if you end up at the end of the year having another 400 you put towards, vacation, because 1 month, you felt like you had the 1,500, right? Or
Mhm.
1,300, then that gets added into the 3,600 you're saving after this car is done. So it'll start to, some of these things will start to sunset, and I think it'll make it feel easier.
Yeah, I think that I've been kind of like looking ahead to to like the end point with the car payment, which I'm really grateful we have, but I'm also just like really ready to, kind of
Be done with it.
yeah, and have that money back. Uh so I love the idea of putting that toward a kind of travel bucket. So I think that will be really fun to actually kind of see that getting built up.
Yeah. Okay. And so then where are you with your retirement? Like, what do you both have in retirement?
I have Elvest. So I have Elvest, and in there I have $28,969.27, and that's split between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA.
Okay.
So the bulk is in the traditional, like,
Okay.
and then currently at my current job, I have $5,210.93.
Okay.
And then in another, it's like this other retirement plan that's in my Chase account that my mom set up for me when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
I actually have to figure out how to get access to it, but it's $6,811.52. So all of these together,
So you have about
it's
40,000,
about
a little
40,000.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. And then what does your husband have?
I think so. I don't know the exact number, but he has about 10. It's like $10,000.
10,000. Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Okay. So I do think it's important that we bump his up. Is
yes.
he also 30? I didn't ask how old he is. Is he
Oh
30
yeah,
around there?
he's 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not too far off in age. Yeah. So I think we should get his up. So I do think that's worth figuring out if we can lower the student loan payment, increase his retirement, and make that even, as I said, if you get $50 back, $100 back monthly, but that we really increase his savings, I think
Yeah.
that will be very helpful because then if he's putting 5,000, that like in 1 year, he like increases his net worth by 50%, right? Like, and
Right.
that's without any market growth or the match or anything.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
huge step forward in net worth.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and then I think for you, for the time being, I would like to see yours bump up a bit as well. I
Yeah.
feel like the 112 is more recent. It seems like you weren't making this level
No.
of income.
So actually, right when we moved, like 4 months ago, is when I started my job.
Okay, this is really new.
Yeah. So I've only been in my current role for about 4.5 months. Yeah.
Okay. I think this will start to get easier as you start to see some things snowball. So I like the idea of saving for your vacations in advance. I think it will help with the budget.
Yeah. And kind of just like a sinking fund or something
Yeah,
for
so
that.
that you're like prepaying for it. And then it also, if we know that like the annual budget for vacation is going to be replaced by the car payment and it's 300 a month, you have an idea of what you should be spending for vacation,
Yeah.
or you have to be able to see where that extra 1,000 is going monthly, right? Because that could be used for vacation. So is that because you went out to dinner? And is
Yeah.
going out to dinner weekly what you want, or did you want to put more towards a weekend away? And I think that you have to be conscious about that spending, right?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I've been actually tracking all our expenses for the last 3 months,
Amazing.
and what I have noticed is that the going out to eat is definitely the consistently. It's like we're going over by like $200. So that's the other thing is like it ends up being like closer to 1,000 than 800, which we
Right.
budgeted.
And so, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like to spend your money on, that's totally fine. But remember, we have to find a balance between, paying down the debt, saving for retirement, and then like enjoying yourselves too.
Right.
So if we're going to go away we're going to do like 4 weekend trips and like one bigger vacation, then we just need to figure out how do we budget that within what we're allocating. And does that mean, okay, like maybe we're not going out to eat, we're going to cook instead so that we can do these 4 weekend trips we want in this annual vacation because
Yeah.
$1,000 a month, right? If that's just getting like absorbed and we don't really know where it's going, that's 12,000 a year. Plus
Yeah.
with once the car payment's gone, that's another 3,600. So that's like $15,000 a year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I know.
So
It's
like
like it's a lot.
it's a
Like,
ton of money.
yeah.
So we just want to see, I think that's great that you're tracking expenses. And I think you just need to see where that's going. Because I feel like if I said to you, you have $10,000 a year to spend on vacation, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that would allow like some really nice weekend trips and one big vacation. Like even if it was 5,000 for a big vacation and 5,000 on little like getaways, even if it's like go stay with a friend for the weekend and we go out to like a brewery or whatever it is, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's a lot of money for vacation. And then with that, if we were able to see where that was going, with that of the 15,000 over an annualized period, and this is new for you, right? This is new income.
Yes.
Then
Hmm.
5,000 more could go towards your retirement. Like these are big numbers when you zoom out and look at your annualized number. So
Right. Right. No, it totally is, and I think that that's just the challenge that, but also like the opportunity that,
I would phrase it as the opportunity. Like we have a lot of extra, like even if we're just rounding down, say you have an extra thousand technically in your budget monthly, that's
yeah,
12,000 a year, and the car payment's going to go away. So that's another, let's just say 3,000 a year. That's 15,000 over the course of a year. That in my mind, what I would do is take some of that for your vacation now to do really fun things, but I would also take a third of it. So of 15, I would take a third and push it back into your retirement. You're gonna,
yeah,
and I think I would err on the pre-taxes. It's gonna allow us to do the hard part is all the goals, right? So the pre-tax
yeah,
gives you the most breathing room because you're paying federal, state, and city at the moment, and you're in a higher bracket. So I'm sure I'll get crap for this online, but I would stay where you are currently. But if you're going to increase it, which is what I'd like to see, I would do the pre-tax because you'll get the most breathing room for vacations now and retirement.
okay,
And I would do a third. So what I would continue, here's what I would continue to do. I would continue tracking this, and I would almost, if I were you, I would almost
yeah,
set up your every 2 weeks that like, because technically you have 1,200 or so a month technically left over. So just I would be conservative and say, okay, so it's technically 1,200, 600 a month. I would do another 400 and just get it out of the bank account. Like just send it to a savings every pay period. And then be
okay,
very mindful of like, are we really like, where is the money really going?
yeah,
Because like, if you're going over, why am I over? Is it because we went out to dinner? Is it because of Uber? Is it because we spent more on gas? So then that way you can be intentional,
right, and not just like, I don't know,
not just
like
have it
this,
happen to you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because 15,000, so I'm just assuming, and so I would take the next 4 months while you have this car payment to really monitor the spending. I would increase the savings by 400 a pay period, see how it feels. Even if you want to be conservative, do 250 a
and
pay period.
is that, and you mean to retirement or to emergency?
No,
To,
just into an emergency fund, but earmark
okay,
it as a separate budget. So this is just to be like,
okay,
are we sticking with the numbers that we've just went over, right? Because then
okay,
you can
yeah,
take it back out and say, oh, yeah, we needed that extra 200 these 2 weeks. And then
yeah,
your job over the next 4 months is to really track where your money is going.
okay,
Because
yes.
it doesn't seem like it's based on the numbers, you should have around 1,200 left over monthly. And it doesn't seem like you do.
It really doesn't feel like it. And I really am determined to figure out why, because even with going over our eating out budget, that's like only $200 over. So
Right. So
I'm
where's
like,
a thousand
where,
dollars going?
yeah, where is it going? So $400 a month or a pay period?
Technically a pay
A
period. That's
pay period.
800 over the
Okay.
month. Yeah.
Okay. 800. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would just put it in a separate bucket. And then if you need it, take it back. But then this is like kind of the like every 2 weeks is like, wait, why do I need another 400? Like if
Right.
where did it come, like what happened in these 2 weeks that we went over? And now if you think about it, that's 200 a week, that's like a dinner. I mean, a dinner out for two people with tip and alcohol, right?
Yes.
And so what I will say, and because when you made less, you lived on a different budget, which is maybe like you have a glass of wine before you go to dinner and you only have one drink at dinner because that, if you look at your bill,
Yeah.
maybe, if it's 4 alcoholic beverages at dinner, maybe that's like almost $60 there with the tip is, and that's not the food. So
Yeah.
there's like these little ways to do it. And I know people hate budgeting, but I think you would probably feel more enjoyment from saying we're taking a $5,000 vacation versus we had 2 extra alcoholic beverages at dinner each week when we went out.
No, 100%. Like I know we would, and I also think it feels like reaching this $12,000 emergency fund goal is like really, it feels like hard, but I know at looking at the numbers that it could be even higher.
Right.
So there's
So
like,
yeah. So
yeah,
this will all start to snowball. I don't want to change your retirement now because I think you just need to get a handle on like where is the money going monthly?
yeah,
Because we should have right now we should just have 1,000 left over, which means that 900 should just get paid in 1 month on that credit card.
yeah, right, right,
Right? Like that should just
yeah,
be done. And so I think for the next, and I'd love to have you back on. We could do this in
yeah.
6 months.
I love
But
to come back.
I think you need to get a handle on where is the money really going and is it being spent the way you want? My guess is no. It's just random things that are just adding up very quickly
Yeah,
because the money is there. So it's just getting spent, but it's not the way you want to spend it. And then once the car payment is done, that's vacation money. I would keep the budget the same, but like, let's try and find that extra $1,000 a month. And then
Hmm.
that also goes towards some vacation money, but also increases your retirement.
Yeah. 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 So like that increases retirement through, and you mean like once I kind of,
The work plan. Once we have a
yeah.
handle on this,
Yeah.
we could increase the retirement. And so on your salary, it would be, here's the number. I would like to get you, because you're at 7. So I definitely want to get you up to at least, I think my math is going to be right. If we did another 3%,
Uh-huh.
actually do a little higher, we could do 4%. And I would do the pre-tax option because I think
Okay.
this will help it feel less intense. Yeah. 4 to 5 is what I'd like to see an increase. You could, if you want to ease your way into it now, you could just do 1%
Yeah.
pre-tax. Just add 1% and see how it feels. And with the goal of eventually adding another 4 to 5 there.
Okay.
And then that extra money monthly, if we can find it, will help go towards the vacation.
Right. And just building that up.
Building that up so that we have that ready to go. And then you also have a kind of an idea of like how you're budgeting for a vacation. So if you
Yeah.
know we have 10,000 over the course of the year, right? Then you have a better idea of like, okay, so maybe that weekend trip is a little too expensive because we're planning Europe or something, right? So then you have an idea of like where you're spending and how we're going to spend. Because maybe what's happening is vacation's actually a lot higher because we have no allocation for it and it's just happening every month and we're trying to get pay for it
Yeah, it could
because
be. Yeah. It could be. I think that's happening, and then I think also it's like buying anything else like clothes, or
right.
like I just bought some clothes and I don't really have a category for that, because it seems silly to do like a monthly category for clothes.
Yeah, right.
So then I just buy them, but then I'm like, okay, that was actually more than I thought. So I think you're totally right about that. The vacation is like we don't really have a set, budget for it necessarily, because it's like, oh, it will just cost what it will cost.
And we'll just figure it out. But then what's happening is it's not always getting figured out because the next month there's another expense coming up
Yes.
and that's where it can get like a little slippery.
Right. And exactly, yeah. And I feel like I really don't want to take on any more credit card debt.
No.
So I've been
No,
trying
we
to
don't want to
like,
do that.
if I see the number, like, because I have this, and I pay it off every month for the most part. If it goes into like 2 months, that's been the most that it's kind of carried over.
Yep.
So, but I definitely don't want that to be like a pattern. So,
Right. And and as we talked about, it can be pretty slippery. But I also think like, so just looking at like two of the really big expenses. So between food and restaurant, we've 1,600 a month,
yes, yeah, it's a
right?
lot.
So like
Yeah.
it's a lot, which is fine. But like if you were gonna monitor, that's where I would really monitor. Like
Hmm.
that is those are the categories I would really look at because those are your biggest categories where we're spending money.
Yeah.
So like, is it really 2,000 a month or is it 1,600? And if it's
Yeah.
1,600, do we really want to tone that down a little? Like, do we want to maybe be more diligent about eating at home, having alcohol at home because we want to take more of these trips, right? And we want a better allocation.
Yeah.
Because I think you're making enough money. You made the right choices, right? You did the community lending, which is fantastic. You reduced your rent, which is fantastic, right? So
yeah.
you're doing all the right things. I think you just have to be very intentional over the next, I would say 3 to 6 months while we get rid of the car payment. And then we just find where's that extra 1,000 going a month. Like we have to look for it.
Yeah, right. And I'm really determined to like find out where it's going. But also I have to, some of these habits, I know that we both have to work on, because if it's like a hard day or something, it's like, or a stressful day, it's like so easy to just be like, we're going to go out to eat. And then that's like
Right.
$150 easily right there.
Easily. Yeah, easily. And so
So,
like over the course of a month, that really adds up and like having a hard day at work stinks, but like also being that's 600 right there, but also going away to the Airbnb for a weekend, where it's 300 a night, that also might help if you know that today
yeah,
stinks, but on Friday we're going to an Airbnb somewhere, we're going to have a nice weekend away.
right.
So it's just I think that the key is really the intentionality and that it's a proactive choice about where your money is going versus getting to the end of the month and being like, oh, I really didn't want dinner out when I had a crappy week. I really wanted a weekend away to look forward to.
Right, right. And I think that's the mindset shift that I want to work on and I want us to work on. So yeah, yeah, I
So I
think
would use this as
absolutely.
like an opportunity. Like we went through everything, and I think that you have more than enough money to hit all of your goals. It's just that like lifestyle creep and like I don't want to say lack of intentionality. I'm not saying that you don't have it, but I think
Yeah,
being aware about where your money is going is hard when life is busy, right? Because you have a bad day at work, you didn't get groceries because you didn't feel like it on Sunday.
yeah,
Like, oh, we'll just go out to eat. I mean, I live the same, we all live in that same world where you're like, oh, whatever, I just need to eat, I'm hungry.
right.
And so it takes time and effort, just like with your money, to be like, okay, no, like I know we have a frozen meal. That's what I do. And I don't know that if that always helps, but always keep something frozen so that
Yeah, it's just
also, I
easy.
live in an area where ordering is not that easy. And so, like, if we're going to go out to eat, we have to drive 20 minutes, which has actually been a saving grace of mine because I used to order in all my food. So now it's just like, well, now I'm starving and I either go to the grocery store or I drive 20 minutes. But like, door dashing is ungodly expensive. I think I'd
Yeah,
almost rather starve. And so,
yeah,
having
it's
some frozen meals, I think to me has always been super helpful because it's like, okay, whatever. I always have frozen meals available. It's not the most healthy, but it's easy. And so
yeah, just
stuff like that. You can make little tweaks to your lifestyle that I think will give you more of what you want with your income.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think this is a great like you said, a great opportunity and hopefully, if I come back I can share some good some good
Yes. Some good
wins.
tips with us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. And for all of our lovely listeners, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And as always, if you like the show, please share with a friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
Time for our disclaimer. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance references are historical and do not guarantee future results. Make sure that you consult with your own legal, tax, and/or financial advisor before making any decisions.